Hi, welcome back. Hi, welcome back. There we are. Today we are learning lessons from Rousseau. So this is where we've left off. So far, we had mapped in a kind of V-shape sky, and we put a kind of dulled blue-grey on our orange background, and it came up with this kind of glow, this kind of luster about it. We decided to place in a sun and a moon, but that might change. The reason for that is it's surreal, isn't it? It's based on Rousseau's The Dream. Anything can happen in your dreams, including, nightmarish things. Let's get rid of palette cam. There we are. We are in a demo class, and I'll get rid of palette cam. Okay, there we go. So you can see. Yeah, so that's where we are. Now, today, I wanted to investigate the tree line. So what is it that breaks through the darkness of the foliage, the depth of the foliage, the depth of the psychological jungle, and breaks up for want of a better expression, the monotony of the sky? So I didn't know what to do. I've never tried to paint like Rousseau in my own art before, and so I tried to do the only thing which I know to do, which is to do a little bit of practical research. So here's what I did. I went to the website, I did a Google search, and I looked at lots of his art where there was a visible tree line with plant and foliage forms extending into the void of the sky space. And I divided my sheet, an A4 sheet, up into four, and I basically looked through images and tried to see if I saw recurring themes or patterns. And so I did. I jotted down seven ideas that I thought were of interest and that I could use on my own work so that I'm being inspired by Rousseau and not just copying him. I saw this one here. This is a long spindly branch ending in a single leaf, and I made notes to say, it's offset pairs. So there's offset pairs of these spindly leaves on a thin stem, and it ends in a single leaf. So that's it. I just basically made quick sketches of the images that I saw and liked and felt I could incorporate into my work. But then I went to the catalogues. I thought, well, this is what I want to do, but how do I achieve it? And so if I take this first one, the long spindly form, you can see that Rosemary & Co., I'm not sponsored by them, Rosemary & Co. have a very handy catalogue, which is useful for people like me because they print their brushes, the photos of their brushes, to the actual size, so you know exactly what it is you're getting. I sometimes struggle with cross-referencing. So, they also have this handy kind of guide to brush marks, and I can see that this long spindly form here could be easily replicated with, say, this designer brush. That would be an ideal tool for that job. And then when I saw this one here, it's a dark mass, a bit like a pineapple, which comes out into these more broader leaves. Then something like this pointed round brush. And this pointed round brush could be quite handy as well because there were some broadleaf plants on these kind of tulip shapes that I quite liked. And so I can see how this shape here that I'm colouring in, it's a bit like a teardrop shape. It's a typical kind of lime British lime plant, British lime tree shaped leaf. That could be it. And other marks suggested, some brushes that are good for zigzags or loops or other kind of effects. Like the fan brush would be great at doing kind of grasses and things, but that doesn't necessarily help us with the sky. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer back to this catalogue again because I'm ready to order some new brushes, and I might take this guide into account in my paintings. What is it that I want to achieve and what brushes should I be looking for? But for today's practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a guide, just slightly off screen, and try and incorporate it into my sky. The technique that I want to do is to say that the sky is lighter than the objects that are in front of it. So I would say that it is backlit, and so the image is going to appear dark. But another term for it is contra jour, which is against the day or against the light of the day, and so a figure can often be darkened because of this lighter background. And so now I'm just going to get on with it. Just black. Touch of water. And what I've noticed is my black has taken quite a long time to dry, and I didn't even put in an awful lot of linseed oil. So I want to observe my fat over lean rule. There we go. But yes, I will be buying a dropper so I can measure out my quantities a little bit better. And a mixing knife. Okay. But the brushes I like are these rigger brushes. I think I want to start with some spindlies and gain some confidence doing this work. And to me that doesn't seem mixed enough, so I want it to flow a little bit better than it's doing at present. And I think I'll borrow off my brush. So here we go. Long and spindly. Well, moving away from my hand, away this way. And creating the spindly leaves. So pressing and then releasing the pressure. And if you follow my art at all, you'll see that I do this quite a lot with the line work that I do. What I should have done also is paid a little bit of attention to the trajectory of the leaves. Like for instance, some might reach upwards to the sky a bit like a bird feather, up in that kind of direction. And so pressing a little bit hard, letting the brush come away from the surface. And there's going to be a lot of this. So, but hopefully fairly therapeutic as well. There. I still want to give the quality that it's quite a fine leafed plant. But the angle that this one is drawn at, you can't see it ending in that single leaf. So back in with the water. Lots of pigment, lots of water. I suppose I could switch on palette cam again, let's see. So you can see that. Okay. So lots of water, lots of linseed oil, by which I mean a small amount to a large amount of this mix. I'm mixing with one brush, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to take the material off this brush with my painting brush, as I don't want to damage the fine hairs. So this time round, I think what I'd like to do is angle the stem into the darkness of the plant material, of that jungle. And so this will allow me to angle my leaves a little bit more. Now I was trying to think of complexity and how it works. And complexity can be built up by the repetition of simple forms. So I'm going to add a little bit more linseed to that mix and pull in a little bit more paint so that it flows more nicely. And takes to the surface quite well. So complexity built up by the repetition of simple forms. So I want to angle this a little bit. And end in that single leaf, which I'll bring to a tip. And of course, the leaves would angle out in the opposite direction, and so what we get is the interlacing of the traceries of these various different leaf forms, building up the complexity that I speak of. So 3 is a good number, so let's change the angle over here. End with our terminal leaf form and build in the leaf patterns. There's a rumour that you can't self-actualise as an artist by copying other artists. That's an idea by an art philosopher called Nicholas Bourriard. And I'm not actually sure it's true, because I'm learning more about my art by creating these forms, by trying to deliberately force myself to learn from, someone like Rousseau, who is a very good example to follow. Okay, I feel that I'm loosening up a little bit, and I would like to put in some of the, well, I could have one of those dark masses, as I've described it. So it almost looks like a hairy diamond. But when I looked at it, there was detailing on it which resembled a pineapple. So I'm just scratching in those forms to remind me. and I'm going to paint them in. What I remember about these is they were a lot broader and slightly wavy in character. So I'm going to allow the brush to do that, to travel. Even rotate it. I don't know if you saw that when I was painting that one there. So again, I'm doing my favourite thing of trying to move away from my hand. But also I'm rotating or spinning the brush to get a kind of more organic shape. Let's see if I can do it towards the hand. So starting off light and then pressing firmer towards. So it just reminds me of the character from The Simpsons, Sideshow Bob. So his hair goes in all kinds of directions, and so I'm trying to do something quite similar. Again, the accuracy of it is not the... It's not critical to be exactly well formed with this, because it is literally a background detail. I'm going to pull that in that direction there and there, and I'm going to question myself as to how it joins onto the mass. I'll just give it a... There, it should join in. Now I'm beginning to wonder about the frequency of these leaves, if I could get away with even greater frequency in these ones. And by doing that, I repeat the forms more often and create that illusion of complexity. But that leaves are intertwining. And yes, I did notice a kind of herringbone kind of interlocking quality in some of these leaves. So that's me used two of the research ideas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in the pineapple detailing rather than sgraffito out that detailing. Okay, we'll extend that leaf a little bit longer. There's room for another one, I think. Okay, so there's the contra jour working. Now, another pattern that I noticed was this thing here, where Rousseau had these fairly long stems, fairly square, and they terminate at a kind of square end, like this. So I'll pull that one into the main body of the painting a little bit. So there was like a flagpole almost, and the top didn't go out of the picture plane. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one here, get close to the top of the picture plane, and just drag that through my moon, because I'm looking for a little bit more variety. And this one was higher, but still within the picture plane. This one was lower, and this one, because they were done in threes when I did my research, give the illusion of aerial perspective. So they also had very broad leaves, and looped branches coming up like telegraph poles. And more dripping branches towards the bottom. And then they were disrupted by the broad leaves, very broad. And I call them, I make a note to myself to say that they're kind of flagpoles. So that's what I'll do. Put in some flagpoles. Beginning to doubt myself a little bit because this doesn't resemble how I paint at all, or the forms or the shapes. But I will trust my research. That I've done it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and odd numbers always work, so there's one more there. A little bit more of a tip. There we go. They look a little bit odd at the moment, but let's see what we can bring in with them. Perhaps some more grassy fronds. So now I'm getting a little bit more casual about the work that I do because I'm getting into the hang of it. Right, so I've used 3 of my details. There was another one that was a bit like a tulip form. Like so. But it existed in 3s, so I put that there. Short stem, and then the kind of teardrop, smaller leaves. Disappearing into the dark of the night. Space for one here. So very tulip form. Long stem, sorry. And then press and lift up almost immediately. With a fairly, almost mathematical regularity to them. Okay, now they were in 3s, so I will put in another one. Longer stem. And my kind of modified dots. Just really pressing with the tip of the brush, and that's given a sort of result that I'm after. Threes are useful, so let's try another one. Right up here. Then come down. Lost in the darkness of the jungle. And then a little leaf, brush tip leaves. So I could put another one there, make it sort of distant, give the idea that there's aerial perspective, linear perspective. So it's a linear perspective that things are disappearing into a distant space. Okay, so a form I'm familiar with, which are these spiky fronds. Let's try it this way. So this form is a familiar one. I live near Inverness, and so we have the Botanic Gardens, and I get a lot of inspiration there. I've seen this form in particular quite a lot. So yeah, it's beginning to fill up with things, with stuff. So what can I have? There's a long bamboo. So there's a long bamboo form, and it definitely did go out the picture plane, so I can go right to the top, right through, straight down, and it does largely nothing. So it's just got these little branches that go out from side to the other side, and all it does is change the direction of the mark making. So there's that. I'm now wondering if there's any forms that I haven't done, and it's true, there is one. There's a kind of lobed shape, which is a bit like a elongated daisy shape. So just very blooped. There I've got a lot of linseed and not enough of the paint. So let's see if I can lobe these out a little bit more. Change the scale a little bit, make them a little bit bigger, and then I can move the move that material about a bit. See if I can make it go further. And then, after a gap, it ends in another 3 lobes. 1, 2, 3, into the darkness of the space. So, and now I'm inclined to make my spikies much, much longer. Make those extend much, much further out. in so much as the gaps between the forms begins to close up and merge as they would in an actual jungle or rainforest. Okay, so my pineapple form, can I do more with it? So, and this form here, we have our long spindly forms. I can now feel myself getting a little bit more casual about the effect. Knowing that this is the back layer of something a lot more complicated. Final leaf on top. And let's drag that down into the main body somewhat. And a more angled one coming over so that it can intrude into the moon space, like so. We've got a crisscross of fronds. Some more of these long bamboo forms coming through, right up to the sun. And then just cutting through the sun there and into the void. A nice kind of straight branch, creating a different rhythm to the organic shapes. And I like those straights, so I could have another one here, just as we go off the page. And to add variety, maybe make a branch go off in a different direction. So make that a fatter one. Give it some thickness. Similarly here, maybe give it a branch going in that direction. And I do like the kind of pineapple form, so I'm going to go with another one there and make sure that the leaves emanate out from it in the usual way. Now, today is just really all about that tree line. I'm going back to twisting the brush as it travels through the space. And since I'm on a bed of black, this should just add texture and not a much of detailing. And lo and behold, I've gone straight through down into the base, brought out some orange. Will this bring out some blue? Yep, it will. Well, we are not copying Rousseau, we are merely being inspired by him. So I can add that as a me detail. What happens if I dry brush this? Is there some mixing going on? Okay. That's fine, because the next part of the painting involves the midground. I'm trying to look for a colour that's still juicy on my palette. So the background is obviously the sky and the tree line that emerges from it. But where my hand is right now, and if I can paint with water, the midground goes to about here. I wonder if you can see that with water on the screen. So there's a figure on the chair, some lines and things, and then some bigger plants coming up here. So, but in the meantime, for me, that seems to be enough for the breaking up of the tree line. I may do it a little bit, like for instance, these bits feel a little bit strong here, so after the camera stops rolling, I might actually try and soften that a little bit with a paper towel, lifting out with a paper towel maybe. But that's it for just now, and thank you for viewing this one and for spending time with this episode. I hope you learned something that is useful to you and inspires your creativity wherever you may be. Thanks now. Bye. See you in the next one.